For context, the Texas House District 41 doesn't necessarily have any colonias, but that doesn't mean that we can't play a role in supporting the Rio Grande Valley when it comes to infrastructure investments. One of the things that I have been working on through my work is broadband expansion. Working to ensure that the Texas Comptroller's Office that's receiving federal dollars to expand broadband, that they're being equitable and fair in distributing those dollars to organizations like Lupe that do that kind of work. And so right now there's a huge digital gap when it comes to colonias. Broadband isn't highly accessible out there, and that leads to a bunch of issues when it comes to applying for benefits, applying for citizenship, taking courses, whatever the case may be. You're literally disconnected from society if you don't have access to internet. So broadband infrastructure is one of the main ones, and I know there's potential to actually get it done in the legislature, because there has been talks about doing more on that in the past. The next is safe transportation, roads, and sidewalks. And so ensuring that there's paved roads, sidewalks, bike lanes, and safe school bus routes to ensure that those who live in colonias are able to get to and from home quite easily. And so this affects our seniors, our students, our workers. So building out that kind of infrastructure. And then also one of the big ones, and what we saw last year, like around March, I think, was whenever there was the flash floods that happened, that put a lot of people out of their homes, some of them still not in their homes. And with FEMA not being very helpful right now under this administration, it's important that the state steps in to support those who live in colonias or those who are not in areas with proper drainage systems. So investing in water, wastewater, drainage systems as well. And all of this tied together, whether it's broadband internet, whether it's drainage system, whether it's paved roads, all of this ties into economic prosperity for all and for our communities. And so I think we need to prioritize a lot of this and make sure that that this is a priority for the state, as opposed to it just being treated as like a side project that, I guess we'll get to that when we can, just because that's how the state treats a lot of our colonia community. Yeah, I think given the political environment right now with the Trump administration kind of just being virtually lawless, and then we have an attorney general who's single-handedly deciding the fate of thousands of people here in the state of Texas and their educational and economic careers. I think the state needs to take this up and make sure that we have protections put in place for our students. Just because these are people who met all the requirements of getting in-state tuition. They graduated from Texas high schools. They live in they pay taxes, whether it's through I-10s or sales taxes. So they're contributing people to our economies and societies. And to treat them different from anyone else just because they're not a U.S. citizen is just cruel. And it ties into, again, economic prosperity. If we're not fully educating people, whether they're non-citizens or whether they're U.S. citizens, what's that going to do for the state? What's that going to do for the prospects of our community? And so it's so important that we invest in education, whether they're a non-citizen or a U.S. citizen, and ensure that they have access to these types of programs. And so people, your average voter needs to not view this as a special treatment. They're not getting extra points or extra monies or anything that someone else isn't getting. They're literally getting the same thing that everyone that is a U.S. citizen in Texas is entitled to. And so it's important that we, maintain fair tuition policies, support K-12 and higher education, and expand financial aid access. And also do partnerships with community colleges and workforce programs as well. So there's a lot we could do, but we have an attorney general who is thankfully going to be gone, but let's see who replaces him. That is just cruel to our communities. Well, the what Greg Abbott is doing to well, one, the state should not have any role in immigration enforcement. That is a federal issue, and Greg Abbott is using any mechanism he could to try and act as an immigration enforcement state, even including using state agencies like the Texas Health and Human Services Commission or the Texas Department of Licensing and licensing and what's the R? There's the licensing department essentially um, to to say, hey, if you want to get your license, you need to be a U.S. citizen. Hey, if you want to apply for this, you need to show proof that you're here, you're a legal resident. So it's no longer just DPS that is being used to enforce federal immigration policies. He's now using agencies to enforce that as well. So we're going down this very dark path that we have been going down for quite a while. Um, in terms of how the state should work with the federal government, it should not work, like I said, in actual policing and immigration enforcement. But we could play a role in humanitarian coordination, in supporting ports and legal processing capacity, combating human trafficking and cartel violence, actual violence, not what the Trump administration says is violence, and improving technology and coordination between agencies. So there can be partnership between the state and the federal government on this, but the state does not need to be implementing cruel, inhumane policies that we see that the federal government is doing. We should also repeal SB 8. We should also ensure that county sheriff offices are not acting as ICE agents, ICE enforcement agencies as well. And so I kind of view it as a supporting role to where we could actually do good for our community in terms of like community safety, getting, fighting back against smugglers, human traffickers, and organized crime. But in terms of the blanket ICE raids and cruelty and all that we're seeing going on right now, we should not be doing any of that. In fact, the state should be doing the total opposite and working to protect our communities from what's happening. For me, I'm a big advocate in working with community-based organizations like Lupe. Given even my work with Lupe quite regularly. So I'll be a good friend and an ally to organizations like Lupe. I will be holding town halls. I'll be holding listening sessions. That's something that you don't see down here in the Valley. In fact, in partnership with Lupe, through my work, we've done numerous town halls and roundtable discussion. On my campaign side, I've held town halls and roundtable and living room conversations. And so I'm going to be someone who's very accessible to the community, that's going to be held accountable by the community, and going to answer to the community when it comes to my votes, why I voted a certain way, and ensure that our community has a voice and a say in how I operate as a state representative. I don't believe in this whole mantra of once you get elected, you kind of leave, you don't interact with the community anymore. I'm very much going to be integrated with community and ensuring that how I vote, what I do, my priorities are come from organizations like Lupe or LEAD or community-based organizations as well.